Is your orchid growing healthy leaves and roots, but refusing to produce a single new flower spike? Before you buy another bottle of Bloom Booster, move the plant to a colder room, or start watering more often, stop and look at the conditions around it. A Phalaenopsis can stay alive for months in a home that does not give it enough usable light, enough healthy root space, or a clear
As you can
seasonal
see, the
signal
leaves
to
look
flower.
perfectly healthy,
And one of
but
those
a closer
problems
look
can
at the
hide
roots
behind
reveals the
leaves that look
underlying
perfectly
issue:
healthy.
severe
In
rot
this
and
guide,
dehydration.
we are going to check 5 reasons a moth orchid may not bloom again inside an American home. We will look at light, nighttime temperature, old potting mix, fertilizer, and salt buildup, and the effect of a home that stays almost the same temperature all year. At the end, you will have a simple readiness test, a climate-based spike routine, and a checklist you can use before changing anything. This is not a promise that every orchid will flower on a fixed schedule. Different hybrids, plant ages, root systems, and home conditions respond differently. The goal is to stop guessing and identify the condition that is most likely limiting your plant. But before changing the light, fertilizer, or temperature, we need to answer a more important question. Is this orchid ready to bloom at all? Start at the center of the plant. The crown should be firm and dry, with no soft black tissue, foul smell, or standing water between the leaves. A small amount of dust or an old dry leaf base is not the same as crown rot. What matters is whether the growing point is solid and whether the newest leaves are developing normally. Next, feel the leaves. A healthy Phalaenopsis leaf is usually firm enough to hold its shape. It does not have to be perfectly flat or flawless. Older leaves may carry scratches, small marks, or a slight downward curve. But if several leaves are deeply wrinkled, limp, or folding along the center, the plant may be losing water faster than damaged roots can replace it. That plant needs a root investigation before a reblooming routine. Now look through the clear pot if you have one. Healthy dry roots often appear silver or grey-green because of the velamen around them. When watered, many active roots turn greener. Do not cut a root simply because it is silver. A dead root is more likely to feel hollow, papery, mushy, or to lose its outer covering when gently handled. Active root tips may be bright green, reddish, or pink depending on the hybrid. Those growing tips are valuable evidence that the plant is functioning. Do not judge only the roots near the wall of the pot. The center may stay wet much longer. If the visible roots look good but the plant remains dehydrated, smells sour, or sits in a mix that takes far longer to dry than it used to, the inner roots may tell a different story. Also check for mealybugs, scale, or severe pest damage. A plant spending energy on pests or rebuilding a damaged root system should not be pushed toward flowers. One more detail often distracts people during this readiness check: the old flower spike. A green spike may produce a side branch on some Phalaenopsis, while a brown, dry spike will not become green again. Removing a dead spike is reasonable, but cutting a healthy green spike is not the missing environmental signal we are investigating. Some growers leave a green spike for a possible secondary display. Others cut it lower so the plant can direct growth toward roots, leaves, and a future fresh spike. Either choice can be appropriate depending on plant strength. If the orchid is weak, has few roots, or is producing a small new leaf, prioritizing vegetative recovery is usually more sensible than asking the old stem for another branch. Do not let the cut spike debate distract you from the condition of the entire plant. This gives you 3 simple categories: a plant with firm leaves, an intact crown, active roots, and an airy mix may be ready for a reblooming adjustment. A plant that is generally stable but has weak light, stale bark, or no temperature change needs its environment corrected. A plant with major root loss, severe dehydration, crown damage, or an active pest problem needs recovery first. Encouraging flowers on a struggling plant may delay the recovery it needs. If your orchid passes that readiness test, the first condition to investigate is the one most often described too vaguely: bright, indirect light. A room can look bright to you and still be too dim for reliable reblooming. Human eyes adjust quickly to indoor shade. An orchid cannot make that adjustment by imagining more energy. Light drives photosynthesis. and photosynthesis supplies the carbohydrates the plant uses to maintain leaves, extend roots, and eventually support a flower spike and buds. Fertilizer supplies mineral nutrients, but it cannot replace light. One clue is leaf color. Many common Phalaenopsis hybrids grow well with leaves that are a medium green. Very dark green leaves can suggest low light, especially when the newest leaf is long, soft, or
As you can
smaller
see,
than
the
leaf
orchid is
before
leaning
it.
significantly
But leaf color
towards the light.
is not a perfect
This
meter.
is called phototropism,
Genetics,
and it's completely
nutrition,
normal.
age, and temperature also affect color. Use it as one clue, not a verdict. Look at how the plant grows. Does it lean strongly toward the window? Has it produced roots and leaves slowly for many months? Is it sitting on a table that appears bright, but is actually 6 or 8 feet from the glass? Does a porch roof, tree, privacy screen, tinted window, or heavy curtain block much of the sky? These details can matter more than the name of the room. Now examine the window itself. An east-facing window often provides gentle morning sun. A south-facing window can be useful in a cloudy northern winter, but it may become too intense in summer unless the plant is moved back or protected by a sheer curtain. A west-facing window can deliver hot afternoon sun that overheats or burns leaves. A north-facing window may work in a very bright, unobstructed location, but many apartments will need supplemental light. These are starting points, not guarantees, because every window is different. Make changes gradually. Move the plant a little closer to the brighter position, then watch the leaves for several days. A healthy leaf should not become hot to the touch. Pale bleached patches, yellow areas facing the glass, or dry brown sunken spots can indicate too much direct exposure. Low light should not be corrected by placing a shade-grown orchid immediately in harsh afternoon sun. Also, watch the duration of light. A bright winter window may provide fewer useful hours than the same window in spring. Curtains may stay closed while the household is away. A plant placed under a shelf may receive good side light for only part of the day. The goal is not one dramatic burst of sun. It is a repeatable daily period of useful light followed by darkness. For a low-light apartment, basement growing area, or deeply shaded room, a grow light can be the most controlled solution. Choose a light designed for plants, use a timer, and begin with the manufacturer's recommended distance. Different fixtures have very different output and heat, so there is no single correct distance for every lamp. Start conservatively, observe leaf temperature and color, and adjust gradually. Do not leave the light on 24 hours a day. Phalaenopsis benefits from a regular dark period as well as a regular light period. A timer removes daily guesswork and prevents the schedule from changing every time someone forgets to switch the lamp on. A phone application can help you compare one position with another, but it is not a laboratory instrument. Use it to notice large differences, not to chase a magical number. A simple comparison can reveal more than a complicated calculation. At the same time, on a bright day, compare the orchid's current position with a spot close to the window and with a spot under the proposed grow light. Notice whether the plant is receiving a wide view of the sky or only a narrow beam that disappears after an hour. Repeat the comparison in the morning and afternoon. This helps you find a position that is consistently useful rather than briefly dramatic. After moving the plant, mark the date and resist changing the position again the next morning. Watch the newest leaf and active root tips over time. If the plant begins leaning less, the new growth remains firm and no heat damage appears. The adjustment is probably safer than a sudden jump into direct sun. When a more S spike eventually develops, avoid unnecessary rotation because the spike will orient itself toward the strongest light. Here is the important twist. Better light does not mean the orchid will immediately make a spike. The plant may first complete a leaf, grow new root tips, or rebuild reserves. Those are useful signs. If the newest leaf becomes stronger and the roots begin using water more consistently, the plan may be working even before flowers appear. But even good light may not trigger a spike if the temperature never tells the plant that the season has changed. That brings us to the second reason, and the signal that heating and air conditioning can quietly remove from an American home. Many standard Phalaenopsis hybrids respond to a period when nights become cooler than days. Think of this as a seasonal cue, not a cold treatment. The goal is not to shock the orchid or test how much cold it can survive. The goal is to give a healthy plant a modest, consistent day-to-night change while maintaining enough light. Do not rely only on the thermostat in the hallway. Put a small minimum-maximum thermometer beside the plant. A windowsill may be several degrees cooler at night than the center of the room. A shelf above a heating vent may stay warmer than the thermostat suggests. Direct air from an air conditioner may chill and dry the leaves even when the room average looks safe. Record the daytime high and nighttime low for at least several days. A useful starting target for many common, healthy Phalaenopsis hybrids is a nighttime drop of roughly 10 to 15 degrees Fahrenheit, or about 6 to 8 degrees Celsius. Many growers also work with nights around 60 to 65 degrees Fahrenheit, about 16 to 18 degrees Celsius, during an appropriate fall-like period. Treat these as reference ranges, not commands. Hybrid background, plant condition, and daytime heat all matter. Cooler is not automatically better. Do not let leaves touch freezing glass. Do not place the orchid in a cold draft or beside an exterior door that repeatedly opens into winter air. Do not move a wet, weak-rooted plant into a much colder location. Chilled, wet roots use water slowly, and a saturated center can become more dangerous when temperatures fall. In a northern home, a bright window in early fall may naturally become cooler at night before severe winter cold arrives. Move the plant only close enough to benefit from the mild change, and keep a safe distance from cold glass. In a home with a spare room that is slightly cooler overnight, that room may work if it still has adequate light. In a warm southern climate, outdoor nights may remain too hot, so an air-conditioned room with a measured, gentle nighttime reduction may be more useful than putting the plant outside. Consistency matters more than one cold night. A single dramatic temperature drop is not a seasonal pattern. Create a stable routine, observe it over time, and avoid moving the plant back and forth between extreme conditions every day. Also, remember that some warm-growing or novelty hybrids do not follow the same flowering pattern as standard grocery store Phalaenopsis. The plant's genetics can change the response. Before you create any nighttime cooling routine, check what is still wet in the center of the pot. That leads to reason number 3. Old potting mix and a root zone that no longer receives enough air. Phalaenopsis roots are not designed to live in dense, stagnant material. In nature, many moth orchids grow attached to trees where their roots receive air and drain quickly after rain. In a home, bark or loosely packed moss can create a workable balance of moisture and air. But that balance changes as the material ages. Fresh bark is firm and creates open spaces around the roots. As it decomposes, it becomes darker, softer, and more fragmented. Small particles settle toward the bottom and fill the air spaces. The pot begins to remain wet longer. The roots receive less oxygen, and damaged roots absorb water poorly. The plant may then show wrinkled leaves, even though the center of the pot is still wet. Test the mix, not just the surface. Lift the pot and notice its weight after watering, and again as it dries. Look for dark, soft bark that crushes easily. Smell the drainage holes. A sour, swampy, or decomposing odor deserves investigation. If a wooden skewer inserted into the center stays cool and wet long after the surface is dry, the inner zone is drying much more slowly than it appears. Sphagnum moss is not automatically bad. It can work very well in dry homes and for growers who understand how long it retains moisture. The problem is moss packed so tightly that little air remains, especially when that pot is placed inside a decorative container with no drainage. The top can feel crisp while the center remains saturated. A clear inner pot with drainage holes makes observation easier. Remove it from the decorative outer pot when watering. Allow it to drain fully and never leave the base sitting in collected water. Decorative pots are useful for appearance, but they should not hide standing water or block airflow around the inner container. Watering should follow this changing root zone, not a fixed promise such as once every 7 days. A plant in coarse bark near a warm, bright window may dry much faster than the same plant packed in moss inside a cool, decorative pot. Check root color, pot weight, and moisture in the center. Then water thoroughly and let the excess escape. A few drops placed only on the surface can leave dry inner roots, while frequent small additions can keep the center continuously damp. The aim is an even wetting, followed by aeration and a drying interval appropriate for the mix. Also, keep water out of the crown. If water collects between the upper leaves, remove it with a corner of a paper towel and improve airflow. Crown rot is not a flower induction method, and a plant with a damaged growing point has a much more serious problem than a missing spike. Repot when the mix is clearly decomposing, when roots are dying inside the pot, when drainage is poor, or when the plant is unstable in a container that no longer fits its root system. Do not repot only because the orchid has not flowered. If the bark remains firm, the roots are healthy, and the pot drains well, unnecessary repotting creates stress without solving the real cause. When repotting is necessary, use clean tools and a clean, draining orchid pot. Remove material gently rather than tearing healthy roots. Cut only roots that are truly dead, hollow, mushy, or rotting. Silver roots are not dead merely because they are dry. Choose a bark-based or mixed medium that matches your home. A humid home may need a coarser, faster drying mix. A very dry home may benefit from some moisture-retentive material, but it must remain airy. After repotting, stabilize the plant and allow the roots to adjust. This may not be the moment to add strong fertilizer, intense sun, and a cold night program at the same time. Change what is necessary, then let the plant show you that root growth and water use are returning. Once the root zone is healthy, fertilizer can support growth, but fertilizer cannot repair the conditions that damage the roots, and that brings us to reason number 4. The most common fertilizer mistake begins with a reasonable thought. The plant is not blooming, so it must need a bloom fertilizer. The grower buys a product with a large middle number, uses it more often, and waits for a spike. But phosphorus is not an on switch for flowers. An orchid needs a balanced supply of essential nutrients, and it can use those nutrients only when light, water, roots, and temperature are working together. More fertilizer does not create more light. It does not restore a hollow root. It does not make decomposed bark airy again. And it does not replace the seasonal temperature cue that many standard Phalaenopsis hybrids use. Follow the label on the fertilizer you own and begin conservatively. Orchid roots can be sensitive to concentrated salts. Never double the dose because the plant did not flower last season. If the roots are extremely dry, damaged, or recently disturbed, avoid pouring a strong fertilizer solution over them. Rehydrate and stabilize the plant according to its condition before returning to a gentle feeding routine. Look for white crust on the bark, pot rim, or drainage holes. Check for root tips that stop growing after entering the mix, darken, or die back. Hard water can add mineral deposits, and repeated fertilizer without occasional flushing can increase the concentration. These signs do not prove fertilizer burn by themselves, but together they justify checking the water and feeding routine. Periodically run clean water through the pot, and let it drain completely to reduce accumulated salts. Do not let the pot stand in the runoff. The exact frequency depends on your water quality, fertilizer, medium, and watering pattern, so avoid a rigid calendar. The practical principle is simple. Feed lightly enough for active roots to use the nutrients, and prevent the medium from becoming a storage place for concentrated residue. During strong leaf and root growth, a balanced orchid fertilizer can support the plant. During low-light winter conditions, a plant may use water and nutrients more slowly. Adjust the routine to actual growth, rather than feeding at the same strength in every season. A plant with no active roots should not be treated like a vigorous plant, producing new tips. Kitchen remedies create another layer of uncertainty. Banana water, coffee, rice water, and other homemade mixtures can ferment, alter the medium, attract pests, or add nutrients in unknown amounts. They are not a controlled replacement for a complete fertilizer. If the goal is reliable, reblooming, improve the measurable conditions first. Now notice the pattern. A well-fed orchid can still remain vegetative if it receives low light. An orchid with good light can still struggle if the bark stays wet around dead roots. A healthy plant with active roots can still fail to initiate a spike if every day feels like the same season. This is reason number 5. An indoor environment that is comfortable for people but too unchanging for the plant. Heating and air conditioning are not bad for orchids. In fact, they can make indoor growing much easier. The problem appears when the orchid experiences nearly identical temperatures day and night, weak winter light, and no gradual seasonal transition. The plant may keep producing roots or leaves without receiving a strong cue to change developmental direction. There is also a difference between useful stability and total sameness. Stable watering based on root condition is good. A consistent light-dark cycle is good. Protection from extreme cold and heat is good. But a healthy standard Phalaenopsis may benefit from a mild fall-like shift. Adequate light combined with cooler nights and slightly changed water use as the medium dries more slowly. Do not change everything at once. If you repot, double the light, move the plant into a colder room, and change fertilizer in the same week, you will not know which change helped or which one caused stress. Correct urgent root problems first. Then, establish suitable light. Measure temperature. Introduce a modest nighttime drop only when the plant is stable. Keep notes so you can see patterns instead of relying on memory. Air movement also matters, but it should be gentle. A small fan in the room can reduce stagnant air and help moisture evaporate, especially when several plants are grouped together. Do not aim a strong cold stream directly at the leaves or flowers. Airflow is not the same as a draft. The best routine depends on where and how you live. A grower in Minnesota does not have the same autumn opportunity or winter risk as a grower in Florida. A hot Arizona window is not the same as a foggy coastal California window. So let us adapt the plan. In a cold winter region, use the mild part of fall rather than the deepest winter. Check roots and medium first. Give the plant the brightest safe window you have, and consider a grow light as natural days shorten. Measure nighttime temperature beside the plant. Allow a gentle drop, but move the orchid back from the glass before severe cold. Winter growth may use water more slowly, so check the pot instead of watering on the same weekday. In a hot southern region, outdoor nights may remain too warm for the cue you are trying to create. A bright indoor position and a slightly cooler air-conditioned room at night may provide a more controlled transition. Avoid putting the orchid outside during extreme heat, heavy rain, or periods of high pest pressure simply because a calendar says it is fall. In an arid region such as parts of Arizona or Nevada, protect the plant from intense window heat and sudden dehydration. Bright light can become excessive heat near glass. Use a sheer curtain, increase distance, or use a grow light in a more controlled position. Humidity trays can modestly affect the immediate area, but the pot must remain above the water. Never submerge the drainage zone to raise humidity. In a mild coastal climate, natural fall nights may provide the transition with fewer adjustments. Still measure the actual location, watch for prolonged cool dampness, and avoid leaving water in the crown overnight. Mild outdoor conditions can change quickly with wind, fog, or a cold front. In a low-light apartment, solve light before expecting temperature alone to produce a spike. Give the plant a timed grow light, keep a real dark period, and measure the temperature where the leaves are. Once the plant is stable and actively rooted, create a gentle nighttime difference without moving it between several rooms every day. Across all these homes, the sequence stays the same. First, confirm that the crown, leaves, and roots are healthy enough. Second, correct a failing root zone. Third, provide useful light without burning the leaves. Fourth, record the day and night temperature. Fifth, introduce a safe seasonal change. Sixth, feed lightly and prevent salt buildup. Then, keep the routine stable long enough to observe the plant. The first positive sign may not be a flower spike. It may be a fresh root tip, a stronger new leaf, or a pot that begins drying at a more predictable rate because healthy roots are using water again. Do not abandon a sensible plan just because flowers do not appear immediately. When a small green point finally appears, look carefully before celebrating. A new root usually has a rounded, shiny tip. It may emerge from the stem and head sideways, downward, or outward. Behind the active tip, the velamen develops and becomes silvery when dry. A flower spike usually emerges from the side of the stem near a leaf axil. Its tip is often flatter and more angular than a root tip, sometimes compared with a tiny mitten. As it lengthens, small nodes become visible. It often grows toward the strongest light source. Do not bend, clip, or rotate a tiny spike too early. Let it lengthen enough to handle safely. Once it is clearly established, use a clean support and attach it loosely. If you constantly turn the pot after the spike begins orienting toward the window, the stem may twist as it repeatedly changes direction. Now use this final checklist. Is the crown firm and dry? Are the leaves reasonably firm? Does the plant have active, functional roots? Is the potting mix still airy and draining? Does the plant receive enough useful daily light without hot, harsh exposure? Is there a measured day-to-night temperature change appropriate for a healthy Phalaenopsis? Is the fertilizer routine gentle, balanced, and free from heavy salt accumulation? If the orchid fails the root or crown checks, stop the reblooming program and focus on recovery. If it is healthy but very dark green and slow, investigate light. If the pot remains wet much longer than it used to, investigate the medium. If the plant is well rooted and well lit, but lives at nearly one temperature all year, investigate the seasonal cue. If white crust and damaged root tips are present, reduce feeding intensity and review water quality and flushing. Do not change every condition because one flower spike is missing. Find the limiting condition, correct it safely, and observe. A new root means the plant is active. A new spike suggests that plant health, stored energy, and seasonal conditions may finally be aligning. An orchid does not rebloom because of one miracle product. It reblooms when a healthy plant receives usable light, functioning roots, appropriate nutrition, and the right environmental cue at the right stage of growth. That is the difference between simply keeping an orchid alive and preparing it to bloom again. Thank you for watching and for taking the time to understand what your orchid is actually telling you. If this checklist helped you identify the missing condition, subscribe to the channel for more practical orchid care, rescue, repotting, and reblooming guides. And when your next green point appears, look closely. It may be the first root of a stronger plant or the flower spike you have been waiting for.